It's time to look at the weekend newspapers, and to help me make sense of the headlines, I'm joined by Sunday Times journalist Zingisa Mvumvu and Zwelinzima Vavi, who's of course the General Secretary of the South African Federation of Trade Unions. Gentlemen, thank you so very much for joining me on the very first 2020 show for the Fix. So I'm going to really push you to speak your minds. Zwelinzima, you've been looking at the headlines. Let's start with the Sunday Times. Gupta fixer, 232 million rand bond seller. Now, of course, this takes us right to the heart of state capture. We know that the Zondo Commission is meant to wrap up. We know also that the Commission head, Judge Zondo, is going to ask for an extension. Are we going to have anti-corruption fatigue, or should we push forward?
I think we should push forward. These headlines, in fact, both the Sunday Times and the City Press, absolutely shock us. But South Africa is now, should I say, shock tired.
Yeah, shock fatigued.
We're fatigued. we don't care anymore. This we've read. But every time you go to the details, it reveals how brazen that effort was to steal from the poor, basically, and in order to fatten the nest of the connected few that played this game. I mean, this is just so brazen. 232 million rands in just 1 year, yes. Just issuing invoices that of a job that was never done. Vague, not even detailing any effort to detail anything as to what was done. Just taken. It's money just taken.
Let me bring you in. You work for the Sunday Times. Your paper has two headlines. It has the Gupta story, and then it has a very interesting story about parents facing difficult sums as fees rocket, right? Given the fact that people have stolen so much and still not been brought to justice, this kind of seems like a cruel irony that the ordinary person should be focusing or feeling the pinch this much. How important are stories like this, and how important is it that it makes it to the front page?
They are very important, Karima, because as you say, that just the juxtaposition between the two stories, you know, the people in government, when they don't do what they are supposed to do, when they steal public funds, it really affects people on the ground, and people are desperate. We know that, for instance, our economy is not doing that great. People have really tightened the belt in the previous 5 or so years, you know. So it really hurts when you see that there was these kind of monies that were just being siphoned off the public purse. And it's quite strange, really, that so far nothing has happened in terms of arrest. You know, when I come back to the Gupta story, for me, what will satisfy me, I see the commissions and all the talk that is going on, is the actual arrest. But there is hope, because when I read in terms of the affidavit by Cronje from the NPA, yes, it goes to show that there is that will to start prosecuting. But until such time that happens, I think there will be the fatigue that you are talking about.
Absolutely. Zwelinzima, I'm just going to ask you to page the City Press to its front page. It has a mirror image story, of course, right? It says Transnet lawyers bribery scandal, and here it talks about the Guptas and it relates to Eskom. Now, what is interesting here is that this links a board member directly to a legal firm that has in fact tried to make money off the state capture, and we've seen this in so many occasions. Your take on that story?
It's the same story like the Sunday Times basically shows again how brazen that effort to steal was. I mean, just to get the City Press one. These guys are supposed to be the lawyers, and the lawyers must abide themselves to some certain ethics.
Yes.
And when they get involved in stuff like this, and I mean, this is not small money, 2.2 million rands just moved into the Khadebes, if my memory serves me right, and that's it. And but I'm happy that the media and what appears to be some slow but definite movement inside the NPA to prosecute should give us some hope that maybe 2020 will be different to 2019, where we've seen these headlines, we've read the Gupta leaks, we've read the stories about Trillion and optimal sales and all of that. But as you are saying, not one person is in prison as we speak, The Guptas are still enjoying their time in Dubai. We salute the efforts that are being made by the NPA to get them back here to account, and we will be watching as to whether the NPA, with its very limited capacity now, this is what should worry us.
Yes.
They have no capacity, and these cronies that you see putting up excellent affidavits in the form of what you see in the Sunday Times should be an exception. You remember the whole project was to basically hollow out,
exactly,
firstly the mass democratic movement, the Congress movement, so that there can be no accountability internally, and then target the key institutions that will...
And key among that was, in fact, the criminal justice system, in case someone lands there, and then cases can just go away.
The intelligence, the police, the Hawks, the NPA.
Absolutely.
And all of them...
I mean, it's the entire value chain.
Absolutely.
Now, another story, of course, that catches my eye, and I'm actually quite concerned that we're quite insular in South Africa, that what has happened in Iran in the last 72 hours hasn't made it to any of our front pages. We're talking about the story only on page 2 of the Sunday Times, saying oil price up as a fear of war mounts. Zingi, the possibility that Trump is deliberately provoking Iran into a conflict that will probably play itself out in a place like Iraq. How worried should South Africans be? We were, for example, promised a price decrease in petrol, but instead we're facing a price increase. So what happens in the world affects us.
All the time, especially when it happens to these oil-rich countries which seem to be the target of these provocations by the United States. I mean, in 2019 alone, we had so many petrol price increases without these kind of wars. But now with this war looming between Iran and the United States of America, we may find it quite difficult and a mountain to climb in 2019 as far as petrol prices is concerned. And just in terms of the relations and geopolitics, I saw a statement by the ANC yesterday condemning what the United States is doing, because it also destabilizes how countries across the world relate to each other. So it's sad, but this is the America that we know. It's nothing new, but unfortunately what they do affects everyone, and they don't suffer at all as America because they are the superpower of the world.
Zolinzima, I'm going to link the developments in Iran to also another big international story that should worry us tremendously, is the fires in Australia. And Australia, as you know, isn't a country, it's in fact a continent. Their climate change was denied by a president. They are attached to coal like we are in terms of our energy options. And workers that you represent speaks about a just transition. And of course we need to make good on that. But how useful is it going to be if you have a job but your house burns down because of the type of energy source that you actually choose?
The reality of the climate calamity is now something that no one can deny. At some point there have been denialists who say, no, it's not happening, this is just part of the propaganda, let's ignore them, let's use our coal, let there be no just transition, as we are saying. But now in Australia, in Brazil, but more importantly here at home in South Africa, we are seeing the reality that the world that we used to live in is just disappearing in front of us. If you look at the crisis of water in the Eastern Cape, and if you look at the floods in KZN, and if you look at the extent to which those things destabilizes people, you will then realize that this is one of the most important issues that South Africa should be mobilizing around.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, thank you so very much for your time. Well, you've had your fix for the week. See you again next Sunday. Thank you so much for watching.